Hey, listeners, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I just want to take a moment to mention the podcast sponsor, Retrogamestore.com.au. Head over there for all your Game Boy refurbish and repair needs. Screens, shells, buttons, and all the bits and pieces. And there's a complete custom build made to order service as well. Also, plenty more retro gaming goodness like video cables, display stand and power supplies, controllers, etc. And you can add the code PixelPie at checkout to get 10% off your order. Also, take a moment to say if you enjoyed this episode and haven't already, give it a subscribe or follow and a review where you can. And maybe you want to recommend the Pixel Pie podcast to anyone you know that would enjoy it. That'd be really appreciated. So thanks for listening, and now let's get on with the show.
This is Daniel Bones, and you're listening to the Pixel Pie podcast.
And g'day, Daniel. How you doing, buddy?
Good to be here.
Yeah, cool. You're in Chicago, right?
Yeah, I'm just outside of Chicago, probably 30, 40 minutes west, but
okay.
Lived in the suburbs for a long time now.
Awesome. Have you been to Galloping Ghost?
No.
Oh man, I can't believe you got this collection and you've not been. Do you know what Galloping Ghost is?
No, I do not.
Galloping Ghost is probably the biggest arcade in the world.
Really?
Yeah, you've got homework to do, bro. It's in Chicago, so they have got. I'm just going to leave it with you. Just when we're done here, Google Galloping Ghost, and I don't mean to embarrass you or anything. I just assumed you're a gamer and you live in Chicago and you have like a season ticket to Galloping Ghost, dude. You're going to lose your mind when you go there.
Yes, I am.
I've not been there, but yeah, it's they've got all sorts of stuff. Like I think they've got something ridiculous like 600 cabs.
Oh wow!
And that's only on
I hope they made it through last year. That sounds amazing.
It's very much the guy that runs it. I mean, I sort of dabble in sort of arcade stuff just because it's all gaming. It's as much about preservation as it is running it as a business. I guess it's like a lot of electronics. If you sort of leave them to sit and get cold, they don't turn back on again one day, sort of thing. So it's just the irony of them. But yeah, man, it's in your neck of woods. So yeah. Anywho, enough about that guy. Let's talk about Daniel. I obviously am interested, and I think other people would be in your collection. Everything. I mean, just in your Insta, it says here, sharing games in my collection from NES to present. That's a big window. And when someone says that and they mean it, that is a big effort. So I guess we'll kind of just touch on the collection and then we'll kind of wind back as to when little Daniel sort of felt the urge to fill his home with all this memorabilia and all this gaming history, because it's people like yourself that are building exclusively large, specific collections that are really preserving. There can be sometimes some sort of crap thrown at collectors because they're the ones pushing the price up, but they're also the ones that are saving things from garbage bins and getting trashed. And someday we'll thank those collectors for hanging on to all this shit. Hey.
Well, I'll probably catch a lot more heat than just being the collector who drives the price up, because my wife and I have been sellers for many years.
Right.
So, I've been a part of that game. I've seen that game. I've, found some amazing deals, but then I myself have been a part of, I guess the economic side of retro games. And, not that I, support the bubbles, but I'm not going to argue when these games are selling for us, at such high cost. I guess when it comes to, the thought of putting together the collection, to start that, I travel a lot for work.
Right. Like sort of domestically?
Yeah, just domestically.
Obviously at the moment, primarily.
Yeah. I've been in the telecommunications industry climbing cell phone towers. I did that for 11 years.
Yeah.
So we exclusively traveled throughout the U.S. and
Mhm.
we always needed something to do in the hotel rooms. One day we stumbled upon a little retro shop, and we all decided to get our childhood games back.
Yeah, yeah, awesome.
Found a little SNES and bought Mario All Stars, and I'll tell you what, it kicked off from right there.
Yeah,
That was
right.
about eight years ago.
Yeah,
8 years
right.
ago, and I've amassed, all the things that I'm trying to share now.
Yeah, and you really do. And it's also there's a the type of photography that you do has a little style, and it's really nice to sort of see, the way that you present all of your gear. Um, is your have you insured your collection?
No.
I asked this of everybody that's got a lot, and I'm like, I don't want to be. You're probably similar to my age and some of the people I've spoken to, and I'm like, I don't want to be that uncle, but holy cow, you've got some stuff that's like so incredible. I'd be starting to look at like actually sort of cataloging it, and but you know what? I'm not giving advice. I'm just I'm super nervous.
When I looked for the house here, I had one of the things that was a must was it needed to be a newer home with an upgraded basement.
Yeah,
One that I'm not going to worry about
yeah,
flooding or anything like that.
yeah,
So that was a big one. But no, I have not even looked into insuring the collection. What I have done is keep things up off the floor.
yeah. There's a good start. Yeah. Oh, so many stories of people that have had like their boxes of like precious Pokemon cards stored downstairs, in a crate, and
Oh yeah.
they get 3 feet of water and it's just all gone. It's interesting what you're saying before about being, on the seller end and stuff. And I was having this conversation with someone else about it's all good and well to kind of give the sellers a hard time. I mean, the PlayStation 5 is a totally different thing, but when you're talking about retro games and why prices creep up, if you put something out there to auction and two people want it bad enough, then it's the seller that has driven that price. Sorry, it's the buyer that's driven that price.
Right.
And I guess then what happens is it capitulates because everyone look back over previous eBay sales and sort of go, this is what it's worth, and this is what I'm going to have to pay, and this is where I'll start my bids at. So,
well, it's all demand, and it was so wild what happened last year with what everybody considers the COVID spike
yeah,
that happened to N64 and
mm,
GameCube. I mean, they just skyrocketed.
mm,
I joke with some of my friends, and even somebody on here on Instagram. He hooked me up with Paper Mario for the N64 right before this all started.
mm.
So, essentially that went from, this, a game that was maybe $100, $150, and the thing just doubled.
Wow.
He's like, hey, I should have never gave that thing to you.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, man,
yeah. Well,
but you did.
I'll sell it back to you. It's going for around 350 now.
And it's wild to see some of these things that have just, because I remember, this was 2 or 3 years ago. I remember watching, YouTubers talk about the bubble and when's the bubble going to burst, right?
Mm,
And it's coming any day now. This is like 2018, 2019.
mm.
And here we are, and things are higher than they've ever been.
Yeah, the bubble just gets bigger and it's making that noise, that getting so tight. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun bubble to be in too. I mean, it's the beauty of being in a hobby, or, something or a scene where it's a bubble you choose to be part of. It's a bit different to the housing market or the job market where, like, if you don't get that shit sorted, you and your family are going to have a really hard time.
Yeah.
The amount of whining and whinging that goes on about someone that can't complete their collection as a hobby with their excess, extra cash. It's like, oh man, come on. Why don't you take that extra money and buy a little perspective? It's you're supposed to be enjoying this, and I get it. Some people are very obsessive and they love to collect, but at the same
Right.
time, I think maybe they've drifted a little away from the reason why they started, and that's a
Right.
shame.
So, and it kind of started getting there for me, to just like you're saying now. When I first started doing all of this, I would, buy a big collection and sell, much like everybody does.
Yeah,
Sell off what you don't want,
yeah,
keep what you want. But in the beginning, I was very much just keeping everything,
yeah, yeah,
and I amassed this gigantic collection of hundreds and hundreds of games of each platform. And I think it was sometime around last year that I decided to purge and kind of get rid of tons and tons of stuff and just keep the things that I actually could see myself playing.
Right.
Because I think at one point I had, over 100 SNES boxed games
Wow.
and, sports games and all that stuff. And I'm trying to preserve it, yes, but I don't need all that. It's just going to sit there and I'm never going to play it. So I cut that down, got rid of a lot of that. And now I'm looking at, a respectable 30, 40 that I can actually pull off the shelf and go, wow, the box art's amazing on this. I could show it to my kids and say, hey, does this interest you guys in any way? And he go, yeah, they might be lying to me just because they want to go play Xbox
Yeah.
or whatever, but
Yeah.
they'll spend 20 minutes with me and, we'll bust it out,
Well,
play
that's
it.
nice.
And yeah, it's really cool to be able to do that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I did purge a bit to get it down to a more respectable wall of awesomeness.
It's interesting when collectors like yourself that just go in so deep and then sort of turn around and make a decision.
Yeah.
It must be a pretty rewarding feeling when you actually just kind of, you're like, okay, I need to move some stuff on.
Yeah.
I was watching, I use Plex on my TV for like my sort of
Mhm.
movies and stuff, and on the TV it has like a free movies kind of channel. And I was just sort of flicking through it and going, oh, is it? And I found a doco which I'd never heard of before. As I like to watch docos about retro gaming. It's called Nintendo Quest, and it was about a couple of guys in I think Canada, because they started working around Toronto, and the documentary guy sort of like they've been gaming together since they were kids. I think they're kind of like maybe early 30s at best, already have established collections. And the challenge was to collect all like 638 NES carts in a month. And it starts and they're kind of getting into it and they're getting bits and pieces together from their friends, buying a dozen here, a dozen there, and starting to work it. I haven't finished the doco, but man, and the rule was no internet. You can't use internet.
No,
Oh,
no eBay.
yeah, no eBay. And I'm like, wow, that's hardcore. Like they just knowing that everything's out there and you could just buy it and have it all turn up at your house. And as long as DHL's on time, you win. That must have,
There's some pricey ones in there though.
yeah, I imagine. I imagine. Yeah. So you were saying you kind of, a lot of yours has come from buying bigger collections, bulk, and then keeping what you want, which originally was almost everything, but obviously that number starts to dwindle as you double up and stuff, and then pushing
Yeah,
stuff on.
I think in the beginning of my collecting, when I was a little more motivated to find more,
Yeah.
there was a couple big lots that I purchased that helped me just grow this thing quickly. And then as time went on, I mean, it's probably been about 8 years of me seriously collecting. My wife, who's an online reseller, she kind of does dirty work for me now,
Yeah.
where she just FaceTime me when she's out at garage sales and thrift stores and stuff like that. She finds some pretty amazing things for
Yeah.
me.
Cool.
But the motivation to get out and find things is definitely calmed down now that I'm very satisfied with the things that I have. So
It must be fairly challenging for her then in the last sort of 12 to 18 months, because there wouldn't have been as much opportunity to get out to these thrift stores and garage sales and things like that. So you guys have had to sort of rely on, I guess it's kind of peaked at the right time for you then. Like you wouldn't want to be starving like a lot of people are for, more stuff and not be able to get it except for just, on eBay.
yeah, well, it affected her a lot more than myself. The telecommunications industry is never going to stop, but so for her it really affected her because we shut everything down and they didn't do garage sales anymore because of social distancing and COVID. But we did have that spike, which was amazing. My online store, I couldn't keep things in it. It actually, I was looking to stop, so that clear out that I had was kind of nice because it's kind of given me the motivation to just step out of that and let her take over that whole thing now.
Mm.
And now it's even more hard for her because so many people were out of work that they all became online resellers as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Still struggle.
interesting. It's interesting. My daughter's like sort of 10 this year, and her and I on a Saturday, if my wife's working, and we'll go and hit a few of the. I don't think like we watch a bit of YouTube and people kind of wander around thrift stores in the US, and
Hmm.
it's not as good over here. And some of them don't do a lot of electrical or electronics because it's got to be sort of tested and tagged, and that becomes an overhead, and they just don't accept that stuff. And I'm like, I wonder what happens because it obviously people just throw it in a bag and it ends up somewhere. And like, I wonder where that goes. They obviously siphon it off to someone, but we'll wander around. And I think it was only a month or so ago, my daughter and I were wandering around, and it was the first time I'd really seen it. But people kind of like someone like your wife speaking to someone somewhere else, sort of going, "What's this?" and can you look up blah blah blah? And they were like kind of price scanning at the time, and they were
Oh,
looking
yeah.
through clothes and things, and
Yeah.
making the $2 here and the $2 there. So yeah, interesting. And the problem is with like any kind of like secondhand markets and almost garage sales as well, that people now are smart enough to kind of get on their phone and go, "What's this worth?" And you kind
Hmm.
of rock up at a market, and it's kind of eBay price minus 10%. You sort of go, I don't know. This doesn't feel as cool as picking something up. But I guess the beauty
No.
is you can hold it. It's right there. You don't have that risk of eBay. So it's still worth it. And if you want something, you just buy it. Like when you're collecting, you need to accept there's a price of entry. Um, and that's just how it works. If you want that thing and it's within your price range, you just buy it. You don't kind of doodle
Yeah.
around with it, eh?
Yeah. I think the fun of the hunt.
Yep.
Um, I think I had some time a couple, probably 4 or 5 years ago when I first started getting motivated into hunting and garage sailing and stuff like that. I was watching YouTubers. Um, they kind of got me motivated to go out and do that stuff. I had always been real thrifty with my mother growing up.
Yep.
We'd go to a lot of thrift stores and stuff like that. Um, so I started watching these YouTubers and finding these amazing deals on video games, and
Yep.
some of them they're not even keeping; they're just flipping them, uh,
Yep.
which I kind of don't agree with. I mean, similar to what you said earlier about this becoming a job for you
Yep.
and losing interest in it. So flipping has never been something that I've been interested in. I will teach her how to do it,
Yeah.
but for me, as if I'm not, in love with collecting and finding these things to put in the
Yeah.
collection, and I'm just looking at it, to turn a profit, then it's going to be done for me.
Yeah. So the
So
difference is like before you said I'll buy a big lot and keep what I want. In reality, it's like when you're panning for gold, you kind of scoop in and you pull up your little bucket full of just whatever's in the bottom, the gravel out of the river, and you shake it around, you shake it around, you shake it around, and the little nuggets appear. You have no less respect for the bits that went through, and you're happy for
yeah,
someone else to have them because you
right,
don't want to keep everything and you got to kind
right,
of try and make some money back, as opposed to
yep,
the people that are just like, I don't care what's in it. I'm going to open the box as I pull it out. I'm going to price it. I'm going to put it on straight on eBay. There's zero sentimental value. Um,
right,
I mean, and it is easy to sort of go, oh, those jerks. But at the end of the day, I guess they're still rescuing it and moving it on, and someone's got to make a profit from it. But yeah, there's this distinct difference between what you do and what others are just doing. Yeah. So, do you have a favorite kind of console IP because you cover a lot? I mean, I'm looking at a page here and I'm looking at a GameCube controller, a couple of Game Boys. Like I'm just looking at a few pictures here, an Xbox game, and some N64 carts, and a Wii U cart, and a PlayStation cart, and a Superboy. Um, that's just me scrolling down a page and stopping in one spot.
yeah. So the SNES has always been my favorite.
Right.
Um, that holds a place in me because I'm 37, so the NES is a little too early for me.
Yeah.
Uh, we had one when I was younger, but I think it was like a hand-me-down or a cousin's or something like that, so it wasn't around for very long.
Yeah.
Um, but the SNES does hold a place for me now, and I guess I never had any of this growing up. We
Mm,
had a couple games here and there.
mm,
I had a single mother, so we just really couldn't afford
Hmm.
things like this.
Hmm.
But I did have a couple friends or one friend, a wealthy friend, and I would hang out with him a lot. And he had a
Yeah,
lot of cool
yeah.
stuff. He
I
had a
know
lot
you.
of cool stuff.
I've had a very similar childhood to myself. I think I had a few things that kept us happy, but I always had a friend that had a something or other, and I would often stay at his place after dinner, and he'd be like, "You kind of got to go." I'm like, "Oh, I'm nearly done here. Just hang on, buddy. Hang on. Can I come back tomorrow?"
Oh man. So yeah. So the inspiration behind all this is kind of just like I missed out. So
Yeah,
I want all that stuff that I missed out on.
yeah,
You know. But yeah, so in that page as you scroll down, I guess the theme that I look for, I guess if you want to call it a theme, is to just try to present different items throughout and never kind of copy the same item in the same day.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, and a lot of times, and I will tell you now, none of this is B-roll. I do these either the night before or the morning of when I wake up.
yeah,
So they're taken, they're edited, and they're posted within that
yeah,
hour.
yeah. It's
Um,
it, there's interesting stuff. I mean, like even I'm looking at one picture here, and I'm looking at it a lot closer, and it's a kind of like a scattered pile of N64 controllers. But I don't think any two are the same. There's a couple of the black ones, but there's the red one and the blue Pokemon one and the orange Pikachu one. And it's just like I see a picture like that, I'm like, oh man, that would be pretty awesome. Like
oh,
that's
that was a day that I took them all and cleaned them all. Took
yeah,
them all apart, every single one of them. Opened them all up, cleaned them all, soaked them in a bath, all that stuff.
yeah. That's incredible. So, are you able to kind of put all them out on display somehow? I can imagine like a huge, like a rack or something, across across the near the ceiling there. Like they're incredible.
I had an idea for so long. I swear it was a year. I had an idea for this coffee table. I wanted to
Right?
find a coffee table with a glass top, but a shelf underneath it, so I could
Yeah,
set all these controllers out on
yeah.
the shelf with the glass top over it. And I looked and looked and looked for, I swear it was a year, and finally one day at a thrift store I found that exact table, and you see that in the background of most of my photos, and they're the reflection of the controllers underneath most of my
Oh
shots.
yes, I'm looking at a few pics here now, like of
So
the
that's the coffee table, and I've
Game
just
Boy
got the
Wave Race, and you can see them through there, peeking through.
yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's I just there's so much. You've got so much, like so much. What is so the SNES was kind of like the one you grew up on. Is that still probably your favorite to play on?
Yeah, just because it's the most well-rounded,
Mm,
the graphics of the SNES. They don't try to go over the top. They do what they're capable of, and I always thought that was really cool. The music always hits. Um,
mm,
when the N64 came out, with the polygons and all that stuff, it seemed like they were reaching for too much, and we weren't quite there yet.
mm,
Uh,
mm.
so as I do love the N64, but the games just don't hit as hard as all of the classics of the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, see. You've also got a few obscure ones. Like you've got a Sega Nomad. You don't see them very often at all. There's
No,
like
and it works.
there's like 12 batteries every hour, sort of thing.
Yeah.
How is it? Like it seems like such an awkward thing to hold. It's like a weird shape, and the lens is a weird shape, and the buttons are all sort of up there. Like, how do you find it to actually kind of hold and play and stuff?
Well, I think it's more of a gimmick, I guess.
Well,
Because who?
it plays a full size Genesis cart, right? You just put the
Yep,
normal cart in it.
yep. And it's just like the Super Board that I got.
Mm,
If you want to play your SNES, play it on the TV.
mm,
If you imagine seeing somebody in like a subway station or a train with this Superboy and their Super Nintendo cart sticking out of the top,
mm,
it's not it doesn't make sense, but
mm.
they're very cool, especially for photo purposes.
Yeah. What other sort of obscure kind of I guess pieces have you got that you're happy to sort of share with us that you think are like, man,
I
I
don't
don't
think
see that that often.
I don't think I have very many obscure items. Um, I believe it just got most of the common stuff, you know.
Mm. So you got to
Um,
think. You got to think for like Jordan sneakers as well.
oh yeah, I don't have many Jordans, but I do like Jordans. As I mean, growing up in the Chicagoland area
Mm.
in the '90s, you know, during that, you know, peak in
Yeah,
Chicago sports,
yeah,
very much into Jordan. So, you know, a lot of my friends and stuff are into Jordan shoes. And the fact that the Jordan shoes came up through the era of the retro video games, I thought it was so cool to kind of pair them up together. And
yeah. And they really do work together. Like there's the one here I'm looking at, which is it's the like the kiwi green Game Boy Color with a pair of Jordans that are blue,
mhm.
but they've got the green sort of like pinstripe around the Nike tick. And it's like, yeah, nice work there. But then you're like, you learn something else. You learn that there was a kind of bluey purple pair of Jordans. Like, oh, that seems odd. And that was the 90s. They
Yeah, they're for everybody,
just did that
every color.
stuff. Yeah. Hmm. So, would you have a rough idea in your mind of across all the consoles how many carts you might have?
Oh no, I have no idea.
Thousands, thousands,
Uh,
thousands.
at least 1,000, I
Wow.
would say.
Do you have any complete collections?
No, no.
Eh,
Like I said, I purged because I don't want to hold on to things that I'm not going
mm,
to play. I'd
yeah,
hate to just keep them for myself if they're just going to sit there.
yeah, yeah. Do you have any kind of like goals like a all of the Game Boy colors or any of that sort of stuff? Like are there things like that that you shoot for that are a little more manageable?
So that's currently I'm trying to do the North American Game Boys,
Right.
um, and knock them out one by one. Right now I'm on pockets, which
Okay.
is they're getting tough. You know, the price of Game Boys are getting up there. You know,
Yeah, yeah. I see there's a few Game Boys in here. You kind of got them opened up. You just sort of open them up and clean them up and that sort of stuff. You're not really modding them.
yeah. So I got into modding. I
Yep.
was really excited to mod. You know, spent a couple $100 on at handheldlegend.com buying
Yep.
all this cool stuff to do
Yep.
it. And then I did a couple and it was really cool and I really enjoy it. I love tinkering with things anyways.
Mm,
But then while I was doing that, I was kind of realizing that I was taking these Game Boys, some that were in perfectly working condition,
mm,
and essentially, you know, and no offense to anyone, but um, destroying them. So
yeah.
I got more into at least preserving the ones that I could find that were in good working order
Yeah. Yeah.
and taking them back all the way to their original form, you know,
Yeah.
polishing any imperfections out of the plastic, you know, replacing the screen. Most of the time you have to do that, but
Yeah.
and that's where I got, you know, motivated to try to collect all original
Mm.
sets.
I think most people would appreciate what you're saying that, if you take something that's in pristine condition and then just tear it apart in order to flip it with an LCD and stuff like, you're a monster. I say that tongue in cheek, but I mean, I think if I most people they just buy these kind of big junk lots, and most of them
Yeah.
are blemished in one way or another. I've got a bunch of really nice, I'd say probably good 80 to 95% condition, but then anything, and then for every model that I collect, I've got a version that was from a beta shell and
Yep.
it's been modded, and so I can enjoy that, and nothing has to be risked at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, and I know that's, you know, what a lot of people are doing. You know, these screens come, they're all damaged or faded out, or you know, the pixels are dying out.
mm.
Um, so I mean, they're going to get replaced anyways.
Yeah, or they're
Um,
going to get left in a box somewhere, or maybe thrown in the
right,
trash. So
right,
I guess at the end of the day, it's better to see them come back and be loved again and
yeah,
appreciated. And yeah, sorry, keep going.
yeah. You know, the pocket screens. I
Mm,
can't find pocket screens for the life of me.
right.
Those,
Yeah.
I always struggle with those.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe they just changed something when they built them, when they did the screens. They do
Well,
tend to,
it's
you see a lot of them with the burnt, the
yeah,
the polarizer is torch. So don't know what people are
it's harder
doing.
to replace. It's harder to repair the lines in the screens with the pockets.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess at least the beauty is the screen comes away from the board. It's when you got a DMG screen, you're kind of like, well, now the whole. I've got a couple like that where there's a bit of leaked crystal on the side, just sort of tucked away under the lens, or a couple of the the horizontal lines that you can't get. I've seen people fix them, but the verticals are okay. And it's like, oh, well, now this, you feel like you lose more because you lose that whole front board. And I honestly thought that with all the modding that goes on, because I've got a few that I've bought and just slight screen blemishes, apart from that, the Game Boy's in really great condition. I honestly thought that if I asked around some of the people I know that are doing, refurbs and mods and stuff, they'd have like a bucket of front boards with screens to get rid of. And they're
Right.
like, oh, I got one or two, but I'm sort of hanging on to them. And I was like, oh, I didn't really realize. So, and it makes more sense, when people are kind of looking to complete, complete in box condition builds and things like that, that
Right.
you don't give anything away if you're in a hobby. I'm at the end of sort of a hobby. I've got 3 or 4 hobbies sort of still in my shed in different states of array. And I open a drawer and I'm like, I used to be in RC trucks and RC planes and this and that and the other. I'm like, I don't even know why I kept that. Like I don't even know what it does anymore because I haven't used it for 5 years. So you never get rid of anything, especially when you're a dad. You never get rid of anything.
Right. Right. Right.
Mm. So what's the goal? I mean, you're certainly taking the foot off the gas. Like, yeah, sort of focusing more on stuff that is just rarer, or are you still kind of looking at ticking a few of the nostalgia boxes? Where are you going?
Well, so yeah, there's obviously, well, I don't say obviously, but there's still some, boxes, because I'm very much into the complete in box, and there's some that are, near impossible, but there's some that are just, the price is just so high.
Mm,
So usually when I run into a situation like that, I find a few things that I can let go, kind of, make a little bit of my money back in order to afford it, because I need to be, I need to make the smart decision. And,
mm,
I can spend a little bit of money here and there, but, some of these boxes are just getting ridiculous. So
mm,
I have to avoid those. But yeah, that's, the goal is to find just the main things that I want,
yeah.
uh, complete in box. Those
You,
make me really happy.
what do you? And sometimes people don't like to give away their crown jewels. But what do you think is probably your most prized? It might not be one, but 2 or 3 really nice inbox items that you'd have to have a bump on your head to let them go.
Well, so I guess, well, I have Earthbound, but everybody
Right.
says that. So I feel like it's not about the money, but
Yeah. No, of
I
course
do.
not.
Yeah, I have a GameCube, um, a console complete in box
Yeah.
that I found at a thrift store for, it's like 25 or 35 bucks.
Oh man.
And I asked her if I can look at it. She brought it up to me. I opened it and everything was in the bags.
Yeah.
So I closed it and said, "This is mine. Thank you."
Yeah. Yeah.
I went home and it was
Yeah.
brand new. It had just been opened and never used.
Oh man.
So there it sits, brand new, opened and never used. It's a Zelda Collector's Edition, so the game's inside sealed too.
Fair income. That is
So
insane.
and that's pricey, but the that moment for me was just priceless.
Yeah.
I wanted to run away.
Yeah. Shout it from the rooftops. That is like an ultimate win for those of us that are, in the hunt for fun.
Oh yeah, you can't ask for something better than that.
Yeah. I haven't
So
had, yeah,
I'll never let that go.
I haven't had anything like that happen to me yet. I'm probably not trying all that hard. I'm a bit of a lazy hunter. I tend to just to hit the kind of buy it nows for Game Boys on eBay. I can't be bothered bidding because I'm happy with, I guess, mediocre kind of condition Game Boys. My eyes are fading, so if there's a few scratches in the lens and it's a meter and a half away, it probably doesn't bother me too much, to be honest. Anyway, but yeah, I'm yet to find a garage sale or a thrift store and just sort of go, ooh. Like even recently, I was out and I was looking at one of our sort of thrift stores, and they had like an Xbox. I think it was like the lime green one or something, and they kind of wanted like over $200 for it
Wow.
in a thrift store. And I was like, this is not how it was when I was growing up. Thrift stores were like, everything's a dollar kind of thing. So, the cost of running those organizations is obviously, a lot of these are like, like Salvation Army and St. Vincent de Paul and stuff. And so they're supporting community type organizations. So yeah, they got costs, but at the same time,
Right.
everybody's got a phone and everybody knows what something's worth and all that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think is maybe you don't want to give too much away, but it sounds like you've moved more towards collecting. You've never really been like I'm buying to sell, but what do you think is like the next bubble? I mean, I sort of see the Wii and the Wii U starting to get attention because as generations grow into that available income, yeah, that generation, there's people that love the Wii. My family and I, we love the Wii. I just recently got a Wii U and I freaking love it. So there's going to be other people.
Yeah,
Uh,
I had a friend of mine tell me a year ago, buy Wii U because it's going to start blowing up.
yeah,
And here we are now. So I think the Wii U is coming up a bit, and DS and 3DS.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, tough time because I just started looking into getting more DS and 3DS stuff, and the
Mm.
prices are just getting up there. So
And it is tough because like over here in Australia, like within my area, if I look in like a 12, you go on say Facebook Marketplace and I sort of look at like Nintendo DS, let's say 12 mile, whatever, 15 kilometers, whatever. And I could pick up probably 10 Nintendo DSs with a bunch of games, sometimes with a charger. And what I would say to be pretty reasonable condition for like $50 to $75. And I'm
not bad.
like, and I'm like, do I start grabbing a couple of colors and stuff? And like, it's like, where do you invest and where do you end up with a box full of stuff that no one wants, a year or two down the road?
It's
3DSs are still big. Like
oh yeah,
anything that's a special 3DS,
ridiculous.
it's still $300, 250,
Hmm.
$300. It's like, that's probably going to be the big one, I reckon, in the next few years.
Yeah, it's all a gamble.
Mm,
A little bit ago, you still got, retail stores selling Wii U and
mm,
3DS. And
mm,
I had always looked at some of that stuff in my collector mind, and part of my resale mind is saying, do I purchase some of these and leave them sealed,
mm.
in 10 years, am I going to go, ooh, I'm glad I left that sealed.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But, I'm not into it for that. I don't want to buy it and keep it sealed. I want to
Yeah.
open it. So I can
Yeah.
never do it. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Have you ever bought anything sealed in box?
No, if I did, I got rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody says that. It's such a, I've had this discussion before and I'm just like, I couldn't have it on my shelf just wondering if it's just a bag of sugar. I need to know. So what's the point of buying it if I'm going to open it? I'm just going to burn.
Oh, that's so tough. That's so tough. I had thought about that because somebody had offered me, I think it was I went to like a Comic Con or something like that, and they had games there, and
Yeah.
somebody had that Mega Man, I think it was an SNES cart, like an anniversary edition,
Right.
and there was two made. One was a blue cart and one was like a crystal clear cart, and you never
Right.
knew what was in there.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I wanted that thing. I wanted that clear cart. But you know, do I buy it and open it right there in front of them to make sure it was real, or like you said, could be a brick inside of there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
But that's a brave world I'm not interested in. You take a certain mentality to be able to have a bunch of sealed inbox stuff. I've sort of delved into Pokemon cards and it's the same. It's just like, who knows what's in that box? It's a booster box from whatever, 10, 15 years ago.
yeah, that gets
Mm.
some good people to reach out to here on this platform if I find some sealed stuff. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be little signs and stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I see you got quite a bit of Xbox in there as well.
Hmm.
So you really do just sort of cover all bases. You're not a fanboy. You're a fanboy of retro gaming.
Yeah, the Nintendo obviously holds a bigger place in most people's hearts,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
a lot more collectible. And
yeah,
but I do try to, if I think it's cool and it looks fun, I'm gonna get it.
yeah, yeah. Do you get much time to play between sort of being a dad of three and working and collecting and stuff?
So they're a little older now. I've got a teen,
Right,
um, and about to be 10 and about to be 8. So they're
right.
a little older. They're
Yeah,
not being babied anymore.
yeah,
So I do kind of try to set aside an hour each night to either watch a show
yeah.
or do a little gaming. Um, right now, I'm currently trying to do Uncharted 4.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
do you so having all these consoles and stuff, I imagine you've got like a nice CRT somewhere to plug into?
I don't have the space for it here. I have one big CRT in my garage that's just there.
Right.
And then I have a little gaming setup in my office at work, another
Okay.
big CRT.
Yeah, nice.
But here I don't have the space for it.
And what, you just sort of like take a console to it and just sort of play around with that for a bit?
Yep. Yep.
It's a good way to do it if you can isolate them. I have all mine right here, sort of in front of me, and I kind of go, I'm going to play something. I kind of look at my 6 consoles are all patched into a Switch, and I'm sort of like, what? That I guess. And so then I run EverDrive, so it's like, what are you going to play? That, and you start doing that whole sort of like Netflix kind of just hunting through, and
Do it for half an hour until you get
yeah,
tired.
yeah. And it's like now you're being stupid. Just, and so often I will kind of just focus on a console. Like recently I sort of started looking into the PS2 and just sort of playing those games. And recently, before that, my last acquirement was a GameCube, and it just astounds me. The GameCube is just, because I've looked at, I've watched and played Mega Drive, NES, SNES, PS1, PS2, and GameCube up to Wii U. We've got a Wii as well. And I just can't understand how how the GameCube. Yes, I understand what it was up against, but I can't understand why it didn't. People just didn't go, this is freaking gorgeous. Like, I can sit here and just watch game intros and just think, man, if I'd have seen this when I was a kid and cared, because I would have been sort of like mid-20s or something, I think. And I was way too busy for computer games at that time, surfing and skating and partying and stuff.
So for the GameCube with me as well, that I feel like I slept through that whole era
Yeah.
because I was a teen and into skateboarding and stuff, and
Yeah.
we were 100% outside. So I kind of missed that GameCube era altogether.
Yeah. I can remember going to people's places to hang out, about that same time. And people had PS1s. There
Right.
was always like Ridge Racer and Gran Turismo and things going on at people's houses. But I
Tough
never,
competition for Nintendo at that time.
yeah, yeah. And I can remember sort of reading stuff and listening to the podcast about it. And they kind of like, I think it was actually kind of like the games journalist industry kind of sort of said to Nintendo, hey, don't you guys have like a console coming out? And Nintendo's like, yeah, we got this GameCube. And I think they kind of knew that they'd missed the mark a tiny bit. And it's
Right.
weird how they were still kind of doing like the Game Boy player. I mean, that's when you sort of see that, you sort of go, are you guys kind of still milking that from back? Like, or are you looking forward to the future? That may have sort of gone against them a little bit too. I'm no expert, but when I see,
But
I mean,
thank you though.
yeah, I mean, back compatibility is a great thing, and now
Yeah.
people are screaming out for it. The PS5, if you can get one, is, it's
Right.
a big deal. It's a big part of it. Yeah. Do you have much in a way of like Game Boy carts?
So I guess I didn't really get into collecting Game Boy until, maybe a year ago or so. I've
Right.
got a nice little collection, but I really don't like to with the same thing. If I don't see myself playing it, I want to keep it. But I guess I do have a little box full of
Yeah.
Game Boy carts that I'm not playing because they're just not really resellable. You can't really find anybody to pawn them
Yeah.
off on. So
Often you
I do
get
have
them
those.
with the Game Boy, and you're like, oh well, I'm not going to throw it in the rubbish. I'll just put it in the box with the others.
Right, right. But yeah, it's a nice little set. I definitely love the Game Boy Advance. It is so much fun to play a Game Boy Advance.
It's a nice. It's just, it feels nice, doesn't it? It's a weird thing when something in your hand just, you're like, this feels great. I play a bunch of stuff. I find the color pretty good too. If you kind of got the color in the pocket, even if you got like a nice little like Pokemon, you can play like in a GB in a color,
Hmm.
just sort of one handed. There's, you can kind of lay on your side in bed and just sort of, you can just use your left thumb or whatever and just sort of drive around and just keep hitting that button and stuff. I'm like, yeah, this. I've played. There's a Pokemon Stadium type game on the Wii, and I think you can take Pokemon from your DS and sort of transfer them over, but
Yeah,
you kind of just, it's the same. You don't use the Wii controller, like you don't use the motion or anything. It just becomes like a D-pad and a button, and you literally can just lay on your couch and just move the D-pad around, and then just occasionally press the button, and they do their thing, and you're like, this is the laziest gaming I've
that's
ever
That's
done.
perfect.
Yeah. So and the beauty of Pokemon games is you can kind of just fall asleep and nothing happens. And you wake up later and the Ash is still standing in a paddock, or you're halfway through a battle and you're like, oh, thanks for waiting, guys. Anyway, just good
Yeah,
stuff.
actually, I was really excited. My kids, my older son was into Pokemon growing up,
Yeah.
and then that kind of phased out. But recently, my younger kids got into Pokemon with Let's Go Pikachu,
Yeah.
and I just got them Let's Go Eevee because they beat Pikachu already.
Yeah.
So I was really excited, and I went down here and I was showing them, some of the older Game Boy games, and
Yeah.
check it out. It's the same thing. It just doesn't look as cool, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't look as cool.
Get out of here. Go to your
Oh,
room.
it's too much reading.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. It's nice when your kids show any form of interest in what you enjoy. It's anytime we can kind of drag them away from, what, because they're just so absorbed in everything they do.
Right. Right.
Anytime we can kind of bring them back into our world. My daughter and I, it sounds boring as heck, but we enjoy watching the 3D printer print. We'll find something and just sort of
That's
sit
so
here
cool.
and have a chat and just watch this reel of plastic spaghetti turn into I don't know, a Pikachu for sake of a better thing. And
Yeah.
just to think that what your children are experiencing and have the benefit of these days, what they'll be doing with in there. You remember the movie Tron, like how they just like zap the orange and stuff, and maybe they'll just be like, there's this thing, you just press the button and there's a Pikachu. It just draws atoms from whatever.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot, and you see that in a lot of my posts. I mention my kids a lot because
Yeah.
at many of these times they are down here with me and enjoying this collection. So
Yeah. The only problem I have with that is like my room's kind of like a probably like in Australia, it's probably an average size bedroom. It's got like a sliding cupboard on one side and a big desk, and you could put like a child single bed, a chest of drawers, and probably a toy box. But I've got it kind of like, I've built a table for my CRT and some cabinets and things like it's quite tight. You sort of, when I walk in, I could probably do it with my eyes closed, it'd be the same in your space. You kind of walk in, but when my daughter comes in and she's sort of like, hey, Dad, love you so much. And the elbows are flapping around. And I'm just like, I really love you being here with me, but could you freaking stand still because you're making me so nervous? All right, time to go now. Bye. Sort of thing. I don't know if you have the same experience.
oh yeah, they're just all over the place. So luckily I've got a little more space, but I'm very cramped down here. So
yeah, awesome. Cools. Well, look, I just think that anybody that goes to your Instagram and checks it out, I've sort of really started, I guess, understanding, like for me, Instagram's always been more of a visual diary. I can go back over the last probably 5 to 6 years, and I've got like 2,500 followers, but I'm sure at least 2,400 of them no longer follow me because they're all from previous hobbies. And, they're kind of, as I move through and people don't unfollow, but you can use it as sort of like a visual diary, and I start to see that in other people's accounts. And the more I ask people to be part of the podcast, and they'll go back to their first post and sort of see the first Game Boy they picked up from a market for $2, and then you kind of watch it explode in their lives. And yours is the same. It's, you can see kind of as you're picking things up, and like you said, the stuff, the pictures you put up is like, I either did it last night or I did it this morning, and you kind of went up and went, man, I love that. I need someone to see that. And then the picture comes up and there it is, looking beautiful and great. And there's nothing better than seeing someone that just enjoys and puts the time into to highlight the beauty of stuff.
It's weird because I started this Instagram account because I had gotten into the raffles and stuff that they were doing on here for so long, and claim sales, and I looked at that as like another avenue for possibly getting rid of some of this collection or selling off things or possibly raffling myself. It was very intriguing, but as I started to take some photos and share to establish followers, I really fell in love with sharing and creating. And I think what's really cool, because I did that too. I went all the way down to the bottom and kind of checked everything going on up to present times. And I really started to get more interested in sharing, what I consider art in the shot. So it wasn't just so much of like, here's what I'm doing right now. How are you guys doing?
Mm,
Here's a question. I actually started diving in and setting up lights and trying to get the
mm,
right angles and stuff. And it
mm.
felt so good to me. So, and up until now, I kind of keep a darker theme. I joke about it being my dungeon down here, and
Yeah.
um, I like to keep it a little dark. And so that's where I am now. And I'm really proud of how far it's come along. And I'm really happy to have met so many awesome people on here too.
No, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say. So it does have a sort of semi-dungeon feel, but it also has a, you're highlighting what the subject is. And one thing that's sort of amazed me the most, and there's a few people that really do it a lot, is like, and I'm just looking at a few of yours now, of like Game Boys out in nature. And it just seems so obscure, but then it seems so right. And it's hard to kind of put my finger on it. You've got a picture here of, a sort of like a pink translucent one, with the mountains in the background. And, there's another one of like the silver pockets of, half buried in the gravel near the dunes. And it's like, but it seems to be, it almost has that kind of like, Space Odyssey 2001, the big monolith that's just sort of like jammed into the surface.
Right.
And
Well,
it looks like it's supposed to be there, but it's
it's
still confusing.
it's a little confusing. So this was like a running joke with my wife before we left, because I told her, I could either like do some B-roll and just have some photos so I can post, because I hate to, let it die out while I'm gone. I was gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah,
And I said, or I can just bring a box full of Game Boys and do
yeah,
this Game Boys in the Wild thing that's kind of like really cool. And she's like, so you're going to bring Game Boys and you're going to take pictures of them in a tree? And I was like, funny story. There's a lot of people that are climbing trees and
yeah,
sticking their Game
absolutely.
Boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
You
and I
might
brought a
laugh.
little box of them, and we'd go to some really cool places, and I'd be like, wait, honey, wait, before we leave, I got to go stick this Game Boy in the
Yeah,
sand.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it was pretty funny. It was fun to do though. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I feel like I need a Game Boy. I thought about this recently. Just any old Game Boy. It doesn't have to be a great one. Just a $90 kind of pocket or something, and just leave it in the glove box of my car, and just every now and then
Right.
just pop it next to a trash can, or pop it next to the fuel bowser. And just I did this. We were a few years back, we spent 4 weeks in California. And so we sort of landed in LA, and then we went to Disneyland Anaheim, and we built the droids. Go to the droid factory, and they're kind of you might be able to see the red and white one up there. So it's about sort of 12 to 18 inches high, and remote
Yep.
control and stuff. And if you flick back through my Instagram quite some distance, because that was 2019. We then had another sort of 3 weeks. From there, we went to San Diego, back into LA, Santa Cruz, up into San Francisco, and then back down again. And I just kind of got these two droids for my daughter, built one as well. And I got them and just sort of placed them in photos at moments, like Big Sur, and at the in San Francisco, I went up to the fort looking over the bridge, the Golden Gate, and just these moments, and at the front of Legoland and looking at the roller coaster, and people like looking at me like, some people can't look at you, but some people are like, "Yeah, that's cool. Where'd you get them
Yeah,
from?"
that's pretty cool.
And I'm like, "Disneyland, man. Like, don't you know what Disneyland? Oh, you can build this at Disneyland." And I was like, "You're in America. How do you not know you can build droids at Disneyland? What do you live under a rock?" It was so funny, but just having that little travel buddy, and just going back, and I guess that then becomes a little moment that you kind of, where you stopped, you looked around, and you took in what was around you, and you're like, where is this best going to suit and complement the situation, and
Yeah, I think
take the photo. And when you can look back, you can go, I can remember being at Big Sur and stopping and looking and going, wow, that bridge is freaking tall, and this is that, because I was considering the shot, as opposed to rocking up out of the car, stretching, going, all right, let's get out of here.
yeah, you got that urban photography.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Well, look, your stuff's awesome. I love it. It's I think it's great when I see something pop on my feed, and before I know who it's from, I can tell it's yours. It's really some styles really pop with people, and this pops with me. And I love just seeing, what you do. Is really good at showing, I guess, the art, like a lot of box art as well. And I think a lot of people have got stuff because of the box art, even if the game's
Right.
terrible.
Right.
And I think you've expressed that quite clearly. A lot of stuff you just love having and looking at, and that's pretty rad. So I would encourage anybody who doesn't yet follow Daniel Bones. So you're under my_retro_bones. I'll put that'll be in the show notes, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have other collectors that you kind of follow and you'd like to kind of, give a shout out to. I always do. And this week is Fleet Mods. This person in Wales, United Kingdom, and just is just one of those members of the community, just very much what we're talking about. Just really beautiful photography. There's a lot of he's got some pictures of Nintendo's in front of castles, and we don't get that every day. Not where I live, anyway.
Amazing. I've seen it. It's freaking amazing.
It's one thing that blew me away when we went to the US, and I think part of the gamer community and this Game Boys out in the wild type photography. Like when we went to the US, I mean, this has only been a country for 200 and something years. There's kind of like fences for sheep, in Europe that have been there like 500 years longer than this country's even existed.
Right.
And you get to see that. You get to see a little part of the world, because I think people are doing like Fleet Mods are doing what we were just talking about, where you're considering your space and the environment and just taking that moment to stop. So some really great shells from the community, some really great photography, even a bit of Game Boy camera photography. That stuff always cracks me up. I'm trying to work out what it is, and you're like, yeah, I get that. And it's just confusing, the Game Boy camera, but hey, it's a thing. So if you don't already follow Fleet Mods, then I suggest you do, and just make that part of your feed and get more inspiration and more joy from what other people are doing with Game Boys. So I now give you the opportunity, if you've got other collectors, or some people just sort of say, oh, look, just go and see who I follow, because there's too many. It's just always so awesome. The conscious yours.
I had a couple people. I guess I really enjoy Marky Pie. I mean, everybody knows Marky Pie. And Retro Gab, if you haven't seen her, their posts they're so positive and like uplifting. Marky Pie, him and his attitude, they can kind of really just get you going and raise your spirits. And Retro Gab, if you check her out, she's got some really cool reels and stuff like that.
Gabby, the Game Boy girl.
Yep. Recently I kind of just seen her like come out of nowhere, and they're so funny, and I enjoy those a lot. I guess the one person I can think of that I wanted to shout out was iHognut. He's like the father of the community here.
Who was
Killer
that?
Collection. iHognut. IHOGNUT.
NUT. Right. I'll have to get that off you a little bit later. IHOGNUT. Oh, get rid of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big SNES collector like myself.
Mm-hmm.
Father. He collects a little bit of everything, and he's got killer action figures and stuff too. And he's been
that's a whole new level, right?
Right. Yeah. He's just like a father to the community. Everybody looks up to him, very positive, and he's always been there.
I love that sort of stuff. Like one of his most recent posts is like the SNES Batman, but then he's got like a really high quality Batman sort of statue behind it. I love seeing the blend of the games and the merch in that one picture, because they just complement each other.
Yeah, very much. He'll always post an SNES game, and I'm like, damn you, Lou. You found it. I don't have it yet.
All right. That's just what you need, someone making you buy more stuff you didn't already.
Right. Yeah. So other than that, I got the a couple group chats I do on Instagram, Salty Snail and my cafe. Shout out those guys.
Right.
Other than that, that's all I got.
All right, man. That's cool. I'll just Salty Star. What was the last one you said then?
And the cafe, they're just they're private chats that I have.
Oh, okay. They're not people. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
I gotta shout them.
bit of Fight Club stuff. That's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. No worries. All right, buddy. Well, look, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you sort of coming into sort of Arvo. And sometimes when you're a dad, any time is the most worst time ever when you've got children. But that's how it is. So I appreciate you taking the time out.
No, thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate this, man. What you're doing is extremely cool. It's been so cool to, hear from these people that you essentially have never seen before.
Yeah.
And get to learn about, what
Yep.
drives them and motivates them. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is really cool. And I get to meet, I personally get to meet everyone. I mean, we all get to meet everyone, but and I'm really privileged, and I really I've sort of said to a few people, I've done a lot of traveling over the last sort of 9 years, and the last couple of years for all of us has been a challenge, and we haven't been able to travel. And I always tell the story of kind of like rocking up in a cafe in Santa Cruz when we were in the US, and my wife's there for coffee, and I'm also there for coffee, but my daughter and I start talking to this fella, and he's a bit older than me. He's probably like 60 odd. And he's like, "Oh, you're from Australia?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, where you from?" Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, "Oh, I play a bit of rugby and the Masters division." And he goes, "Oh, the only place I've ever been was Brisbane." I'm like, "Well, that's where we're from." And so then we're just talking for 40 minutes. My wife's like, "I got my coffee. I'm out of here." And I'm like, "Go. I'm never going to meet this man again. I just want to talk to this total stranger about life here and there and what have you been up to." And when you can't travel, and if it's what you like doing, there's only so much you can get from your local, grocery guy before you've talked about everything. And that's what I really, really love about all this. I'm talking to people from, Chicago, Florida, Wales, Scotland, wherever. It's the world's out there, and I can bring it all to me and then give it to everybody else. So I appreciate your support.
Yeah.
I really do.
I think it's amazing, man.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll certainly end on that note, mate. Thank you so much for your time. You have a great weekend. I'm going to keep watching. I'm sure a whole bunch of other people that haven't heard from you before will start watching. And just keep collecting the cool shit so I can admire it and I don't have to spend the money on it.
All right, man.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much for your time. You have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.